Hi everyone, it's Justine, and today we're going to make this really fun stencil on stencil card using a technique that I tried out. How this technique works is you actually stencil on top of a stencil. So let's get started. I'm going to be using these new mini stencils from Tim Holtz. I had wanted this color splotch sort of stencil for actually a really long time, but it had also always been sold out in the large size. So when the mini stencils came out, I made sure to jump on that and get this as soon as I could. Alright, so I've seen this technique done similarly with the stencil done by Christina Warner, but what she did was stamp inside the stencil instead of stencil inside the stencil. So I just wanted to give out credit as to where the inspiration came from. I'm going to start with mustard seed ink, and I am going to make sure to put this blended ink into the stencil. Now I'm going to make sure that it's quite dark so that it's quite vibrant, but you don't want it to be so dark that you won't be able to see the stencil on stencil. You have to be really careful using this small stencil, as you'll notice later I accidentally get a bit of ink on my card. I'm putting the bubble stencil from Tim Holtz over top of that stencil, and I am getting this really cool bubbled look inside the splotch of the stencil. So now I'm just going to continue on, and I'm going to be moving my stencil over and over again throughout the card to make a really nice splash of color. I wash in between my stencil in between each use around on the plastic area because I don't want the colors to be picked up too much by the blending tools. I'm going to put you in a little bit of a faster mode now since you know how the technique works. I'm using carved pumpkin here on this one. It's my favorite new orange ink from Tim Holtz because it's so bright and it's, like I said, it's a little bit more vibrant than Spice Marmalade or the other colors that I've been using from Tim Holtz. And I'm using this brick stencil here for this one, also by Tim Holtz. Once again, pick up, wash, remove, and then replace and continue on. Now I'm just using a blending tool here just to fill in some of the white space that occurred between the two shapes. I ended up leaving the white space a little bit here and there as the colors went on, but I did want some of them to blend together and look like they were blending together. So I'm replacing this one here, and I am going to be using picked raspberry as my next color, nice pink color. So when you're doing this and you're using your colors, you can really use any colors you wish, but the colors that touch each other are going to have to be colors that blend well together. So you can't have anything that makes a brown color or a green color because it's not going to look as nice. So next up I'm going to lay over another stencil. This is a lace stencil from Tim Holtz, and I am just using any sort of stencil that has pretty intricate details so that you can see them on this small space. The next color I'm going to be using is Wilted Violet. This is another one of the newer colors from Tim Holtz. I absolutely love his new line, and I wanted to place my stencil so that would cover up that pink little bit that I got up there at the top so that it wouldn't be as noticeable. To avoid getting little splashes of ink like this, you might want to mask off a certain area of your card or add some more masking tape to the sides of your stencil. That would help out a lot. Now I'm adding these little hearts to that one, and then I'm going to continue moving on. So I just fixed up some of the white areas with a little bit of white gel pen. It doesn't do a perfect job, but it does help a little bit. So I needed now a color that was going to blend in with the purple and the pink, so I'm using Candied Apple from Tim Holtz as well. I was only planning on using 4 colors for this, but because I had so much white space, I ended up having to use a 5th color. So I'm using the chevron stencil here from the Heidi Swap, and just sort of dabbing that in because it's such an intricate stencil. And now I only have one more splotch of color to do. I love the way that the card is so vibrant and fun, and it adds all these little patterns, but it's still a clean and simple card. It's done on one layer of cardstock directly on the card base. So it's quite nice, especially for mailing, because this isn't going to cost any extra to mail, and because there's no extra layers. Alright, I'm going back in. I decided to go back in with mustard seed this time, and that same stencil as I used on the other side, just to tie the card together. I thought adding another color would be a little bit too much. Lastly, I just had to add the sentiment, and I'm using a stamp from My Favorite Things. This is awesome because I bought a rainbow die, and then it comes with a stamp set, I bought a stamp set separately that came with all sorts of rainbows and colorful sentiments that are really uplifting and great. So in order to get these really thin sentiments straight, what I usually do is I lay it down on the paper and pick it up with my stamp press directly from the paper. That way it doesn't warp when I put it on with my fingers. I'm using Versamark ink. This is my favorite black ink for sentiments, and I'm going to stamp that. I had a hard time deciding whether I was going to stamp it underneath the splotch or on top, and I ended up deciding on top. So the sentiment says, rainbows appear when we need them most. And I thought this was a really nice uplifting card. And that little purple splotch that I got on the top there of the card actually won't be seen when the card is folded. So that's the end of today's card technique. I hope you enjoyed this double stenciling video. Here's a final look at the card and the really vibrant look of it. I absolutely think it's amazing. All supplies used are linked to you below in the video description or on my blog. You can access my blog by clicking up at the top where it says click here. Over on the right there's a subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, or you can click on the card that showed there to see a tutorial on how to create this really vibrant look using the similar blending inks to the card I just made. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you soon for another video.